Hey guys, welcome back to My Sports Vice. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And this is the podcast for my sleeper picks for the 2016 season. We'll talk a little bit about drafts for now. Most of you guys, today's the 17th of August, so my draft for my main league is Saturday, and we usually have it the weekend before Labor Day, so we're doing it a week earlier than usual because of scheduling conflicts and everything. But don't always like to have the draft this early because injuries can happen during the preseason. But that's the way it panned out. But most of you guys should be starting up your drafts pretty soon. It's a pretty exciting time for fantasy players. So far, we've been pretty lucky in the preseason or during training camps. No real major injuries. Stevie Johnson, the wide receiver for San Diego, is he's out for the season. He had to have knee surgery, and he's done. But other than that, there's been no major injuries. Brandon LaFell for the Bengals got hurt a couple days ago. He hurt his hand. It might require surgery, but he's probably not on a whole lot of y'all's radar anyway. We got suspensions for the whole season. Martavius Bryant is out. Tom Brady's out for the first 4 games. Le'Veon Bell's out for the first 4 games. Josh Gordon's out for the first 4 games. And Carlos Williams, a running back for the Buffalo Bills, is out for the season. For insurance, Buffalo went out and got Reggie Bush, but I don't think, as long as McCoy stays healthy, I don't see him being much of a factor. No real surprises in the draft. I've got an ADP list here, and if you guys don't know what ADP is average draft position. Right now, there's been on average 6 running backs and 6 wide receivers going in the first round. Antonio Brown is the consensus number 1. It's going usually Brown, Beckham, and Julio Jones. And then after that, it's running backs. You can mix them all up between Peterson, Gurley, and David Johnson. David Johnson wasn't even on anybody's radar last year. I mean, nobody even knew who the guy was until the end of the season. So he's going real high. And then Lamar Miller's got his stock has risen over the offseason. He's going on an average of the 9th pick. And Gronk, surprisingly, is going number 13 on average. I thought he'd be in the first round for sure. So it's going about half and half wide receivers and running backs in the first round. No real huge surprises. The first quarterback off the board on average has been Cam Newton at number 30. So he's going in the 3rd round, and then Aaron Rodgers is not far behind him at number 36. And the one little surprise as far as my rankings go, I have Ben Roethlisberger as my 4th ranked quarterback, and he's going on average as he's the 6th quarterback being taken with the 66 picks. So he's going in the 6th round. That'd be a great find. You imagine you can get 5 good players before you're able to get Ben Roethlisberger. That you'd be doing real good there, I think. I was surprised by Jordan Reed. He's going 42nd pick. So he's going in the 4th round. Greg Olsen, who had a great season last year, is going in the 5th round at pick number 51. So there's a few surprises here and there. Arian Foster, I was surprised to see him. He's on average going to 57th pick in the 5th round. That'd be a dicey pick. I mean, I like the guy. He played for my favorite team, the Texans, forever and did really well, but he's just so injury prone right now. But I mean, if you were to take a guy like Foster, you better have some good backups. I mean, you better pick some running backs to back him up, because it's just a matter of time before he gets hurt. The guy's been injury prone for the last few years. But that's a bit of a surprise that he's risen so high in the draft. He just got signed a couple of weeks ago. But let's talk about the sleepers. So a lot of these sleepers, I've already talked to about these guys on my main list. Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Now, last year I had him on sleepers, and he didn't have a great season. He improved in yardage from the year before and the year before that, but his completion percentage was down to 61%, which isn't great. But the reason I have him on this list is he's going pretty low in the draft, and I have him in here somewhere, and you can get him on the cheap, and he might end up putting up some pretty good yardage because Adam Gase is the head coach there now, and he loves to throw the ball. He's going 168th. What's the math on that? 168. So he's going into the 14th round, and you could draft him as your backup, and he might turn out to be a pretty good week-to-week quarterback, and definitely somebody we want to play on your bye for your other quarterback. But with Adam Gase as the new head coach who loves to throw, he was coached Peyton Manning. He was in Chicago last year where they threw the ball a lot. He's got some good young wide receivers. He's got Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills. These guys are all young, and they're really fast. Jordan Cameron, I think they'll get him more involved this year than they did last year. Their running game isn't very good. I already mentioned Arian Foster. And Foster catches the ball out of the backfield. So I like to see him make a jump this year in his numbers. And so he's a nice little pick. You can get him late as a backup, and he might turn out you might want to start considering him as a starter. Now, a guy that he could easily be drafted as a starter for your team is Matthew Stafford. And he's going way down the line. I was really surprised where he's going. Where is he here? He's the 16th quarterback being taken at 128 on average. And that guy throws 600 times a year, every year. And I know he lost Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson hasn't had the big years that he was having a few years ago, the last couple of years. He's been injured a lot, and I'm surprised Golden Tate isn't getting as much love as I thought he would, because he's going to step into that position. And 2 years ago, Calvin Johnson was hurt a lot, and Tate stepped in and had like 100 catches. And so he's got Tate. They got Marvin Jones from Cincinnati. Eric Ebron is an up-and-coming tight end. Theo Riddick out of the backfield caught 80 passes last year. I think I know Detroit's going to throw the ball 600 times. He's going to put up a lot of yardage. So I think he's a nice little sleeper pick. I'm surprised he's not considered a top 12. When I say top 12, I consider that a starter because most leagues are 12. Running backs. Jeremy Langford for Chicago. I've heard different opinions. Some people think he's going to be a bust this year. Some people think he's going to be a sleeper. I think he's going to be a sleeper. If Chicago uses him anything like they used Forte, he'll be involved in the passing game, and he'll be there on third down. In goal line situations. Last year he had a small sample size. He only played a few games when Forte got hurt, and he looked real good. And Chicago likes to throw the ball, but I think they're going to start using him a little more often, and he really doesn't have any competition for that number one spot as the running back for Chicago. But I think Jeremy Langford is a good pick. He could end up being your number 2 running back as a starter. Melvin Gordon, I talked about him in the running backs podcast a couple weeks ago. He actually caught a 47-yard touchdown pass the other night. Now, of course, game 1 of the preseason doesn't really mean anything, but he wasn't very good last year as a rookie. He fumbled a lot. He ended up getting hurt towards the end. The offensive line for San Diego was terrible. But I think he's going to be a good running back. He was really good at Wisconsin in college, and I don't see that not happening here. They'll get him involved. Woodhead, of course, comes in a lot, but he'll play in a wide receiver slot, when he's on the field. But Melvin Gordon's a good pick. I think you can get him late. He's going. He's the 27th back being picked, and he's going in the 6th round. So you can get him late, and you should have a decent running back. Theo Riddick. This is basically for PPR guys. He caught 80 passes last year. Him and Woodhead tied for the lead in the NFL with 80 catches. 80 catches is the equivalent of 13 touchdowns. That's the thing about PPR league is if a running back catches 6 passes, it's like he scored a touchdown for you in a standard league. So I don't see why you wouldn't want him in your flex position. You can stick in Amir Abdul is the supposed to be the starting running back for Detroit, but he didn't really look good last year. So they're going to give him another shot, but I like Riddick coming out of the backfield catching wise. I don't actually have him on my article, but I also mentioned Ryan Matthews for Philadelphia. The new head coach for Philadelphia is Doug Peterson, and Peterson was the offensive coordinator for Kansas City. And we all know how they like to use Jamal Charles. Like to throw the ball to Jamal Charles and use him a lot. So I don't see why they wouldn't do that with Ryan Matthews. The only problem with Ryan Matthews is he does get hurt a lot. I think he's only played 16 games in one season once in his 6-year career. So he's a bit of an injury risk, and I don't know if you would consider him a reach, but I think he's going to have a good season in Philadelphia. I really do, because they're going to emphasize running the ball, and their wide receivers really aren't that good. So Ryan Matthews is a good pick. Wide receivers, there are so many wide receivers in this league that are capable of putting up good numbers. My number one sleeper is Michael Floyd. I'm surprised he's not higher. He's currently going as the 24th receiver taken off the board, which I guess you can consider him a starting receiver. If you're going to have 2 receivers on your team, then 24th would put him as your second starting wide receiver. I think he's going to step out of Larry Fitzgerald's shadow this year. Fitzgerald's still good. He's probably got a couple years left in him, but he's strictly a slot guy now, and he's catching intermediate passes. And Palmer likes to go downfield. So does Bruce Arians, the head coach. They like to go downfield. Floyd's fast. If he can stay healthy, he's going to put up good numbers. Marcus Wheaton for Pittsburgh. He had a golden opportunity dropped in his lap when Martavius Bryant got suspended for the season. So basically, he became the number 2 wide receiver. Now he's going to have, he would have to screw up in training camp and lose the job to Sammy Coates or Hayward Bay. I don't see that happening. He's going to be the number 2 receiver. Antonio Brown is going to be drawing all the coverage, which leaves Wheaton open downfield. Right now, he's going 108th in the 9th round, and he's the 43rd receiver being taken. So you can get him late, and he might turn out to be a nice little flex position for you for the whole season. He's going to see over 100 targets last year. I think last year he had 76 targets. So this year he'll get well over 100 targets because they throw the ball a lot in Pittsburgh. Travis Benjamin, I think he's going to be a nice little pick. Stevie Johnson, like I mentioned earlier, is out for the season with a knee injury. So basically it is now Keenan Allen and Travis Benjamin, of course, Antonio Gates. And Phillip Rivers can still go downfield. Benjamin, for the last couple seasons, has averaged 16 yards a catch. He's a burner. He likes to go downfield. And with Keenan Allen drawing a lot of attention, he's going to find himself open deep. He's going right now in the 10th round as a 114th pick, and he's the 45th wide receiver being taken. That's a nice little pick that you can grab him, maybe start him on the bench at the beginning of the year and see what happens, but I see him having a good year. Kamir Aiken for Baltimore, he stepped in nicely when Steve Smith went down last year. Brashard Perriman was their number 1 draft pick, I believe, last year, and he never played, never was able to stay healthy, and right now he's not healthy. So Aiken's going to probably be the number 1 receiver. Steve Smith's supposed to be ready for the season opener, but he's 36 years old or something like that. He's coming off of an Achilles injury, so who knows what's going to happen there. I like Kamir Aiken. He's going to be a sneaky pick. He's going late. He's going in the 12th round, and he's the 48th receiver being picked. That's a nice grab late in the draft. Tight ends, Zach Miller. I have him ranked pretty high. I think I have him ranked in the top 10 in my on my rankings. Here, I'll look it up real quick. But he's, now that Martellus Bennett left Chicago and went to New England, he's basically the tight end for the team. I don't see him he doesn't have any other competition. So Cutler likes to throw to his tight ends. He did a lot with Bennett. Where is Miller? I've got Miller. Where is he? I've got him ranked 17th, but he could easily end up in the top 10 if things go right for Chicago. So keep an eye on him. Alshon Jeffrey is going to draw a lot of attention, and because of that, Miller will get some nice looks. The second tight end I have on the list is Jimmy Graham. Can you believe I have him as a sleeper pick? That guy was like all world 2 years ago, and nobody could believe that New Orleans traded him. And then last year they were misusing him in the first half of the season, and then he got hurt and he missed the rest of the season. I'm telling you, man, he is going 112th in the 10th round. He's the 10th tight end being picked. If you can get him that late, then you're going to be golden, because I think he's going to come out with a chip in his shoulder. He's going to have a great season. I really do think so, because Wilson is starting to throw the ball more in Seattle. Their running back situation is not as solid without Marshawn Lynch. I think that he'll be throwing the ball a lot, and I think Graham's going to come out with something to prove. He might end up making your season if you can get him late in the draft. I really do. I'm going to continue. I'll do probably another one. I think I might even do a podcast from our draft. Our draft is Saturday. I think out of the 10 teams in my league, 8 of the guys are going to be at the draft. 2 of them are going to have the draft online. But we're really excited about that. We're making a whole thing out of it. We're gonna barbecue and play a little poker afterwards. It should be fun. I think I might bring my recording equipment over there and talk to a few guys about their strategies. And I've gotten in a few free leagues. It's a funny story. I was in a PPR league just like last weekend, and I had the 4th pick, and somehow I ended up with Odell Beckham Jr., which was beautiful. So I got him. The guy behind me, the 5th pick, takes Julio Jones. That's about standard. So it comes back around. So the guy behind me is now in front of me. So he takes, I don't remember who he took. And then I come up, I take A.J. Green. So I have Beckham and A.J. Green in a PPR league, which is pretty good. And all of a sudden, I see a message on the bottom of the draft room, and it's the guy that's behind me, and he says, "Hey, I don't want Julio Jones. Will you trade me A.J. Green?" And I guess he must have missed the 2nd round. He wasn't there, and it automatically, or the 1st round, and it automatically drafted Julio Jones for him. I don't know. But I was like, sure, dude. So now I've got Odell Beckham and Julio Jones on my team in a PPR league, and I drafted Mike Evans and Jordan Reed. So that's my receiving core is Beckham, Jones, Mike Evans, and Jordan Reed. And I was able to get Russell Wilson. So that was a pretty nice little team there. We'll see how that goes. But I hope you guys are having fun with your draft. I've talked about it. It's on the website. Some 101, some just basic reminders. Know your scoring system before the draft. Understand what it is, because some drafts you getting 6 points for a touchdown pass, where most standard leagues are only doing 4. In my league, we do 6. So there's a little more value on quarterbacks. You get an extra 2 points per touchdown pass. PPR league obviously makes a big difference when drafting running backs and wide receivers. Just know the scoring system in your league before the draft. Things like that. There's an article on my website. You guys can listen to us on iTunes. You can also go to mysportsadvice.com to get the podcast. You're already listening, so you figured it out already. But tell your friends. Do me a favor. Go on Facebook, if you like the podcast, of course, and tell your friends about it. I'm getting a few downloads, which is nice, but I could definitely use some more. And we're doing this on YouTube. So this podcast, you can listen audio or you can see the YouTube channel. And you can see some of the memorabilia back here. This is what you guys are trying to win. One of these. That's from year before last. And then Shane, who won last year, has been throwing this thing in my face for the last few months. But, I appreciate you guys tuning in. So for the year, I'll probably do a couple podcasts before the season starts. And then I might have some friends over to do one. And then during the season, on a consistent basis, I'm going to do two podcasts a week. I'll do a podcast about, we'll talk about the previous week and what happened, injuries, things of that sort. And then I'll have an article called What to Watch For, guys that I think are going to have good weeks and guys that I think are going to have bad weeks. And, these are guys across the leagues. That I think that in particular are going to have good weeks. and you guys might be on the fence about starting a particular player or whatever. That guy might be on that list that I talk about, so you can check that out. And I'm also going to be doing a podcast about DraftKings. FanDuel has decided to not fight the Attorney General here in Texas, so they are not in Texas, so I can't bet with them. So fuck them. I can still bet with DraftKings, so that's who I'll talk about. I do pretty good on DraftKings, so every week I'll have value pick podcasts talking about guys that you can get for a good value, that are going to have good days and get at a good price, so you can spend money on better players. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for listening. This is Jeff with My Sports Vice. I'm out.